Hey there, welcome to today's video. Let me jump right in there. Alright, let's get started. During the pandemic, especially in the early waves, Apple stock prices plunged. A phase that everyone believed could pass as a stress test for Apple stock, as it soon reached a $2 trillion valuation after the pandemic relaxed. The pandemic was in fact a test of strength for Apple's overall strategy, its business model, and the strength of its newer sources of income. And when we say newer sources of income, we do not mean only products. We also mean services. During the period after the stress test, Apple became a stock for safety for most investors due to the extended bullish predictions of stocks in the market. Before we go in depth into the Apple stock, please make sure you like and subscribe if you didn't do that already, and don't forget to hit the bell icon while you're there. It goes a longer way than you can imagine. Take a look at the installer base for Apple. It has over 1.4 billion active devices. That is about 1/7 of the world's population. That is a lot of people if you ask. And they are all potential for Apple products. Moving on, there are about 950 million active devices that are iPhone users. You may be wondering, where are we going with this? Imagine if those 950 million iPhone users decided to upgrade their phones. Definitely not all of them, say a very high percentage of them. You should recall that in 2019 alone, Apple sold almost 185 million iPhones. Then in 2021, they sold more than 79% of the number of iPhones the company sold in 2020. Mind you, the demand for iPhones is still on the high, so there is a possibility that its 2022 sales will surpass that of 2021 by a very high percentage. This will be coupled with a high demand for 5G-enabled iPhones, which would drive iPhone sales to about 89% of that of 2021. Impressive, right? Although looking at this figure, it may seem very high and somewhat outrageous, but a lot of its investors estimate that the chances of this happening are also very high. And if this should happen, the event is more likely to drive Apple stock to a higher price, if not more than $250. In the second half of 2021, the price of Apple stock stepped on the gas, and since then has been forging on with only a few hindrances on its way. But how well can an entry-level 5G-enabled iPhone supercharge Apple stock price growth? Will it ever get to $250? And how soon? It is simple logic that with the release of a new 5G-enabled iPhone, there will be an accompanying increase in the need for an upgrade. According to a rough estimate by Chatterjee, these upgrades are expected to be welcomed by almost 300 million users who are currently using their old versions of iPhones. JP Morgan believes that the bigger targets would be the 1.4 billion active devices. 1.4 billion devices upgrading to a 5G-enabled iPhone is a sure way for Apple to boost its revenue and push its stock price to $250. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just in case you're not already clued in on what's going on, more users equals more subscriptions or more sales, which equals more revenues. As the revenue of Apple's company increases, so does the possibility of Apple stock hitting a $250 price increase. Although there is a chance that the price of Apple stock could go higher than that. A very great chance. In late 2021, Apple had a difficult time trying to meet the demands of its growing customers. What if it had been shoring up its supply chain after it struggled to meet up with demand? The shortage in supply was due to a lot of reasons. While most of the inability to meet up with demand was caused by the pandemic, the majority was caused by the shortage of components that were needed to make the Apple devices. However, before the end of 2021, Apple was able to meet those demands. Not only that, it satisfied all of its customers. That means Apple stock from those sales gained a certain degree of momentum to propel it to even higher levels. But with this, do you still think that Apple stock is a good buy? Or is it worthy of being in your investment portfolio? Before you conclude on that, you need to do thorough research. Being here is a good start, but you will need more research as this wouldn't hurt. As a rule in investing, do not invest money you cannot afford to lose. Do you know that in recent years, Apple has kept aside some amount of cash in order to buy back its outstanding shares? If you don't know what that is, keep that in mind. We will get back to it very soon, as it is a great way to keep a stock going higher. And that's exactly what Apple has been doing these last years, and is primarily the reason why we think the stock will reach $250 and even more. Apple has in the past 2 years maintained a strong defense by opting for a very tough offense. Apple is well in the know of this, as they have both a strong defense and a very effective offense. This makes them one of the best stocks to buy, especially in times of economic uncertainty. In case you didn't know, Apple is one of the best stocks that does not only create free cash flow, but consistently generates profits. The majority of the profit Apple generates goes to its shareholders. Most investors, regardless of the condition of the economy, will always go to companies that produce or distribute consumer goods that are always in need. And when a bullish market occurs, those companies are easily chosen by investors. Why, you may ask? Well, it's quite simple. Apple can't fail, not in the near future, all because people need Apple products, or they think they do at least. And when you need something, you can't just stop buying it. Try to stop buying food. Can't? That's the point I'm trying to make. People think they need Apple products, so they won't stop consuming them overnight. These companies have distinct characteristics that help them grow. The distinct characteristics of these companies propel them towards an accelerated growth rate, which is favorable to investors. One such favorable stock happens to be Apple stock, which has proven to not only create free cash flow, but consistently generate profits. Not only is Apple stock a very good defensive stock during tough economic conditions, it is also one of the stocks that never has a bad timing to invest in it. Every time is a good time to invest in Apple. Also, the fact that it may reach a $250 price in 2 years or less is a good enough reason for you to want to invest in it. However, one still needs justifications for that. Did you know that Apple's profits and revenues are always on the increase, like their EPS and revenue per share? Did you know that Apple was one of the only companies to generate $100 billion in both free cash flow and net income during a trailing 12 months? There are several reasons why Apple was able to do this, but it was mainly because Apple pumped in lots of money into buying back their shares, which rewarded their shareholders. There are different catalysts for growth that have been put in place by Apple, which might increase its stock price. These catalysts will set the tone for them. This will cause the Apple stock price to not only reach a $250 price by 2024, but also surpass it. If you are an Apple stock enthusiast, remember it took Apple stock a 17-month period to move to a $3 trillion market cap and valuation from a $2 trillion market cap. If you are also in the know about Apple stock, you will also remember that it took about 2 years to grow from $1 trillion market cap to a $2 trillion market cap. If you closely study this pattern, you will see that a $250 stock price with an expected market cap of almost 5 to 6 trillion market cap is almost 40% less than the rough estimate from the current price of Apple stock at the time of production of this video. Another reason why Apple's stock price will get to $250 can be as a result of the stock's very strong defensive nature. This is because Apple stock is always outperforming the stock market in terms of uptrends. When it is time for correction, it also declines lower than the indexes based on percentages. The Apple stock shows all the features of a defensive stock, from the dividends to the profits, not regarding the condition of the economic cycle. The process of buying back stocks is a process that Apple does. Well, one thing you might not know is that buying back stocks increases the shareholder stock ownership in a business. When a company's outstanding share is up to 200, and you are fortunate to have about 20 of that company's shares, that means your shares represent 10% of the company. If the company, like Apple, buys back the company's share, say by 38% of the outstanding share, your 20 shares, which was initially 10% of the company, becomes 16.13% of the company. To put it in a more simple way, it's as if someone was giving out 10 cookies and you had 2 of them. That would mean you have 20% of the cookies. But if the person ate 2 of them, you would now have 25% of the cookies. Your 2 cookies would then be more valuable as they would be more rare. Each time the buyback happens, the shareholder, which in this case is you, has a relative increase in their portion of the company's stock percentage. This makes the stock bullish and one of investors' favorites. In 2022, Apple is already on track to exceed $100 billion in both free cash flow and on their net income. There is also a great expectation for Apple to allocate additional capital that will be used for its buyback program. This is because of the $200 billion in cash that they have on their books. Since this would be bullish for shareholders, it would cause more investors to join the Apple stock bandwagon. Nevertheless, they are not the only reasons Apple's stock price would reach $250. The company has several future catalysts that would have been put in place to drive revenue and increase the stock price, not to mention the autonomous business segment that Apple will soon place its mark on. About that, there is also the augmented reality and virtual reality business segment of Apple that will boost its stock price to $250, possibly even more than that. From all of these, you can see that the Apple stock is not only meant for growth, but has become a defensive stock for many investors. So what do you think? Is Apple stock a good buy? Would it ever hit $250 price? If it can, how high can it go? Do well to let us know in the comments section below. If you liked our video, then go ahead and click on the thumbs up, subscribe, and the bell icon to get notified of our new and upcoming videos. Goodbye!